I was lucky enough to find this free leaf blower by using an app on my phone. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to it for the past year until now, since the mowing season is finally over. And well, I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. This blower is in really bad shape. I just haven't looked into it well enough to find out, and I hate to say it, but after a second look, it's much worse than I was hoping for. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this leaf blower, and the problem is that it won't start, but it also seems to be coming apart. Now this is not what I would call a quality machine, and unfortunately by its condition, the last person who owned it felt the same way. Generally speaking, if a machine is expensive to purchase, most consumers seem to treat it better than if it was the cheaper version. And if you couldn't tell by the way this one is designed, not to mention the quality of the parts, this one is quite cheap. And because of the condition of this machine, I think it's best that we record the information from the stickers because I think we're going to need to buy parts for it. It's a real shame though, because according to this sticker on the housing, it's only several years old and should not be quite this bad. So why do I keep mentioning just how bad this machine is then? Well, all we have to do is pull on the rope and you realize just how little this engine is fighting back. This simple test will help you find out how healthy the engine is, and well, this one could use a bit of help. So what about the part where I mentioned that it's coming apart then? Well, it's right here. As you can tell, it looks like the housing and the engine are no longer attached to each other, so I have to wonder what's holding this blower together. Now a good way to find out how healthy the engine really is to use a compression tester. The tester will measure how much pressure the engine can make on the compression stroke. The higher the reading is, the better it is, but a low reading means there's some wear on the engine which is not good. And if you want to know what kind of readings I'm talking about, I like to see a reading of about 150 psi, but anything lower than 100 psi could spell trouble for this engine. This would also be a great time to inspect the spark plug for any problems, and if it is bad, you might want to consider replacing it. But to be honest, it really doesn't look all that bad, although it could use a good cleaning, which we'll do once we know this engine has a clean bill of health. Now it is up to you as to which brand of spark plug you want to replace this one with, but I like using what it's supposed to have from the factory. So the reading is 115 psi, which is bad news. Yes, it's not below the 100 psi threshold I mentioned earlier, but it's still pointing to serious problems with the engine. So is 115 psi enough compression for the engine to start and run? And even though I know someone answered yes it is, I'm a firm believer that it is not enough. Now my take is that 100 psi is too low to start and run, while 115 psi is right on the edge for it to be able to start and run. So what does that mean then? Well, to me, it means that it may not be predictable when it comes to starting, which is not a good thing. So after putting some fuel into the carb, it didn't start. But before we blame the compression, we might need to check for spark first. And to do that, I like to use a spark checker that you can install in line with the spark plug. After that, pull on the rope and watch for an orange glow from inside the tester. Also, you might want to move to a very shady area for this test because it could be tough to see. I do want to apologize for the poor angle, but there was a faint glow from the bulb inside the tester, so we do have spark. What that means is that the only thing missing is enough compression from the engine, and to find out, I like to take the blower apart and see just how bad the engine really is. And besides that, we need to find out why the blower is basically coming apart at the seams. There's just no way of getting around it, but we need to take off every fastener and then disassemble the entire blower to do that. Yes, we could just take off the muffler and look inside the engine for any damage, but I don't mind taking it apart first. Now, if you plan on doing the same thing and want to be able to put it back, make sure to keep all the fasteners organized, otherwise you're going to have a really tough time. And with all the screws removed from the blower housing, we can finally expose the impeller. So this piece of foam fell out while it was separating the housings and apparently goes right here in the handle, which is kind of odd. This piece of plastic and spring is for the release for the blower tube, so don't lose these parts. And if you've never seen how the cruise system works for the throttle, well, here's your chance to see it. It's quite a simple design, but the strange part is that it's typically seen on higher grade machines, so seeing it here is kind of odd. Next, we'll try and remove the adapter for the electric start, but there is a problem. We'll need to keep the engine from rotating to make this easier to do, and for me I prefer using a long modified spark plug. There are special tools you can use, but since I'm cheap and I have plenty of these around, this is what I chose to do. And because the spark plug is too long, when the piston comes up, it'll make contact with the plug. That'll keep the engine from rotating, and then we can take off the adapter and the nut for the impeller. So could you try and hold the impeller to keep the engine from spinning? Yes, you could, but you might damage the impeller too. Luckily, these are still available, but it's not cheap, and with this machine not being worth very much, it'll cut into the profits if you have to replace it. Once the adapter is gone, we have access to the nut that holds the impeller to the crankshaft. Now you can use an impact if you want to, but there's nothing wrong with just using hand tools instead. There's also a washer that's protecting the plastic impeller that was kind of stuck in place, but a bit of persuasion helps out a lot. The impeller was a pain to remove, so you'll need some patience to take it off. And with the impeller gone, we can see quite a bit of damage on the housing making contact with it. And the reason why it's like this is because all the bolts that secure the engine to the housing are long gone. Now this should not have happened. The reason why is because these bolts should have had blue thread locker on them, but somehow that didn't happen. I have had some of these bolts back out just a little bit, but this one is the first time I've ever seen them all gone. And if I had to guess, this is probably a quality check issue, and there's a good chance that this is not the only one like this. I didn't realize it until now, but this bulb is the kind with 3 ports on it, which just makes things even more complicated. So it will be very interesting when I try to put this back together. It may look like I'm trying to unmount the purge bulb, but the bolts that holds the bulb to the engine needs to come off to take off the recoil. Luckily, this recoil doesn't have any problems, but it could mean it wasn't used all that much before the blower got to this point. And it's a good thing too, the price for this new is more than this blower is worth in working condition. But if I had to replace it, I would definitely consider getting a used one instead. So why is the recoil so expensive? I thought this was a cheap machine. Shouldn't the parts be cheap too? You would think that was the case, but because this blower wasn't popular, fewer parts were made for it, so the parts are expensive. If you do choose to buy a used one, you should be able to find them for about 25 bucks if you're lucky, more if you're not. So I do have these bolts from a different project that should be a good fit for the ones that are missing on this one. And here's the moment where we find out just how bad things are inside the engine. What I'm hoping for is that the rings are stuck and causing the low compression, which has happened before. And if that is the reason, we can free the rings and it should increase the compression reading just enough to get it to start and run. The side of the piston is all we can see, so we'll need to rotate it to be able to see the rings. But once we see them, things are not looking good, but first we want to see if they're stuck. I'll just rotate the engine back and forth and you should see the gap between the 2 rings change in relation to the piston, which we can. That means the rings are not stuck, but the condition of the rings and the side of the piston is what worries me the most. These rings have a lot of damage to them, which is also seen on the side of the piston as well. And if they look this bad, it means the cylinder is also in bad condition too. What that means is that there's no saving this engine, and to fix it, we'll have to replace the top end. That means a new piston with rings and the cylinder as well, but there's some bad news. They don't sell those parts for this engine separately. They only sell the entire engine as an assembly, and you don't want to know what the price is for it. So what do I do now? Do you think it's worth continuing this project, or do you think it stops right here? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.